Hey there, this is K4A, Knowledge for All educational videos and tutorials. Today I will try to show you how and when you can use GML visual drag and drop block, which is called if instance exists. If you have watched my previous videos and tutorials, you know that in GameMaker you need to define the object first, in which you put images, sprites, for example, of your enemy, player, and so on. And when you drag and drop that object into the scene, into the level, into the game scene, it becomes instance of the original object. It becomes instantiated, and the easiest way to remember that is to think about cookie cutter and cookies. So cookie cutter is original, it's object, and all the cookies are instances of it. So instances are very important in games. Sometimes you will have only one instance of object, like we have with the player, so we need only one player on the screen. But sometimes, like these yellow circles, they represent coins, you will need more instances of the same object. So I have one object here which is called obj coin, but once I drag and drop it from my assets to the screen, it becomes instance. So I can have multiple instances of the same object. And the thing which we will learn today is that sometimes you will try to access those instances with the code. We already did that in our games. For example, you want to change the rotation of instances. In our case, we have changed the visibility, the transparency of these coins and so on. So for example, you can see how they disappear slowly, but they disappear and so on. So sometimes you will run into problems when you try to access or change some kind of instance, but that instance is not available, that instance doesn't exist. So it's like telling GameMaker to do something, some action on some instance, on some thing which doesn't exist, and then GameMaker gets confused and it crashes, it gives you errors, and your game crashes, it glitches or whatever. It depends on where you put that code in and so on. So in short, you have to be aware if the instance exists on your game scene, and then and only then you can access it by code, change it and so on. If it doesn't exist and you tell the GameMaker to find it or do something on it, he will bring the error on the screen. So let's see that in action. You have seen right now, a few moments ago, when I start my game, my enemy, which is here, zombie, green zombie character, he goes left and right in repetition, and I want to change that. We disable some kind of action here. We disabled a lot of those because we work on some other stuff in previous videos. So it's also common thing to do when you work on more complex games, to disable some code which makes problem for you or you don't want to test. So disable it when you don't need it, then later enable it again. That's what I did just now. Right click on the code which was disabled and I clicked enable, or vice versa, and I have enabled the code which says here to zombie. It asks the question, it makes the condition, is the zombie health greater than 30? And I know it is, because I have defined that variable already in the start in my create event, and say you can see here zombie health is 50. So if zombie health is greater than 30, then set point direction to obj player to x and y, that means to the center point of the object player. That means chase it, because we are in step event. This will happen all the time, forever, until the game, while the game runs, and the speed of the chase will be 3 pixels per frame, I think. Okay, so now when I try my game, when I start it, test it, zombie will start chasing the player right away. I think so. I hope so. Yeah. And I can run away here, and I have this possibility to go up and down fast, which helps me a lot. Anyway, very simple but nice feature and game and so on. So we have this on the screen and it works, it's all fine, but what happens now, for example, if I for some reason while I test my game, or my game designer or game tester, he disables this OBJ player by accident, or maybe later, I haven't added that yet, but later in the game I will be, for example, I have health for my players, so, and lives, so my player will be able to die. So what happens when my player dies and disappears from the screen, or somebody deletes this OBJ player 2 instance from the screen, maybe by accident, maybe by some code, maybe by some design feature or whatever. Anyway, I don't have my player. I will just I'm now in my room 1 instances layer properties, and you can just click on those check marks to enable, disable your objects on the screen. So now I will test my game, and again, just think about it that my player, for example, died in game, or someone deleted it, and I haven't changed any code here. That's very important to emphasize. So I'm not changing any code here. I still tell my zombie, my OBJ enemy, okay, try to chase who? OBJ player 2, OBJ player 2. But the problem is there is no OBJ player 2 on the screen. And that is the scenario which I was talking about, what happens when instance doesn't exist on the screen. So let's see that in action now. My zombie player will try to chase the player. My zombie, enemy will try to chase the white block player on the screen, but there is no player on the screen. So let's see what GameMaker will do. It gives me a code error, which is great now, because I'm still in development of my games. It's not my game is not published, my game is not finished, it's not on the store, people cannot play it, so the embarrassment is a little bit less. But just imagine that you have done this when you publish your game, or forgot to define this, or you haven't seen this anytime before, and so on. So you get some kind of error, and let's read. We have learned that before, that you should read these errors when you got them from the GameMaker or whatever kind of engine you're working on. So yeah, I will use this code error message, but you can also sometimes find more in-depth description here in this compiler or syntax errors. It depends on what you need. Okay, I'm now reading the code error message here. I have the error in action number 1 of step event 0 for object obj enemy. Okay, great. So I now know where my error is. It's in my obj enemy object step event and the first line. Why is that so? Because GameMaker was unable to find an instance for object index 4 name obj player 2. Okay, so GameMaker is unable to find, or to be more precise, obj enemy zombie is unable to find instance of obj player 2, and that's why he cannot find the direction, point direction, and so on. So that's all. I hope it's all logical to you and makes sense, because I don't have OBJ player on the screen like this. This guy zombie cannot find this guy the player. It's simple as that. And sometimes that will happen later in your game and make more problems. Sometimes you will see that in the start, or the more experienced you get, you will see that faster and know that you should somehow try to disable those errors from the start, and that's what we are going to do now. So I'm going first to find my OBJ enemy. Here it is. Step event, here it is, and it said it's the error is in first line, or this first code, because that's the only code which I have enabled so far. So the problem is here with the set point direction and set chasing state of zombie, because he cannot see this guy here. He cannot see OBJ player 2, so he cannot find the coordinate OBJ player 2 X and Y. Okay, that's all cool. So how can I say to GameMaker, okay, do this check, do this expression, do this condition only if this guy OBJ player 2 is alive, if it exists, if it's on the screen. GameMaker programmers did that to us, and you can find that GameMaker drag and drop block, which is called if instance exists. So they already pre-made a block for us to use it, and I will drag and drop it here on the top. But I have to be again aware what do I want to do and how to do that. In GameMaker you have to put expression in the block, so when it's right here below, it doesn't mean they are connected, they are dependent. They will be triggered dependently only if I put it in like this. So take care of that. And again, that's much more visually better done in Scratch and so on. Some other game engines, this looks kind of confusing to me, and that's one of the things which I don't like about visual programming. Okay, let's test this and let's define this. So I have to tell GameMaker which instance I need to check, or to be more precise, which object, original object and its instance I need to check. In my case it's this one, OBJ player 2, because I want to tell to GameMaker and to this guy here, zombie, okay, start chasing only if this white player exists. So if instance exists, which one? Object, and then find the one which you need. In my case it's OBJ player 2, right? That's this one, OBJ player 2. Okay, if that guy exists, then do what? Then do all of this. Oops, you see how it's easy to get fooled here. If OBJ player 2 exists, then start looping and reading this condition. If the expression of zombie health is true, okay, it's true, then go start chasing the player. So if this guy exists here, this guy will chase him because he is binded with this if instance exists. And what will happen if this guy doesn't exist now? Let me try that. So in previous testing we had an error. So GameMaker gave us an error, it crashed the game, we cannot play the game. So what will happen now? If the instance exists, do this, but if the instance exists, this will never be tested from GameMaker. GameMaker doesn't care about this code as long as this first one. So he reads the code as Scratch, as other game engines, from top to bottom. And if the first one, if the first condition, which is if instance exists, is not true, he doesn't care about the rest of this code in this condition. So if it isn't true, this instance doesn't exist, okay, I'm not going to chase the guy. Simple as that. It is already built in and smart enough to not read and not do the action which is later in the code. So you can see it's very simple. We don't have the player on the screen, but we don't have the error, we don't have the game crashing, which is great. Now our zombie just go left and right. That's all cool, but if for some reason game player dies, or it's deleted, or he disappears, the game is not crashing. So it's very important concept to see and learn, and you will face that problem a lot in your game development, and you will face it a lot as a beginner. Then later, when you become more and more experienced, you will know every time when you code some feature or object or instance, you will know that if that instance can be deleted, it can disappear, then you will put this condition, okay, do that only if that instance exists. And one more thing to explain, and maybe give you another example, although this is already 20 minutes. And so I have explained this checkmark here, not in other GameMaker blocks. We had that, yeah, you have it here. If expression zombie health is greater than 30, and if I check this not, that will mean if it's not greater than 30. So it's like negative, negation, opposite of what you write here or here. So if I say here if instance exists and check not, you will read it like if instance doesn't exist. Sometimes you will want to do that also in your games. For example, I can do that here with my, let me find the obj zombie spawner. Okay, so if you remember from previous videos, we made some kind of zombie spawner here in top right corner, or a little bit below the scene, which will spawn zombies in some kind of periods, some kind of time intervals, which we defined with a set alarm countdown drag and drop block. This code was disabled, and I will enable it here just to show you. Destroy instance, I think I don't need that. Yeah, destroy all. Okay, so what kind of game I have now when I start my game? I will have the game which works like this. When the game starts, zombie will start to chase the white player right away, and more zombies will be spawned here in top right corner, and they will be chasing this guy here. I think it should be like that. So let me just test that and see how it goes, and then that will be another scenario for our coding exercise. Okay, this one works, and yeah. Okay, so spawning will work endlessly here. So that's how we defined our code, and that's all cool. Sometimes you will need to spawn endless waves of zombies or enemies or something like that. But for example, again, think about some kind of scenario where you are working for some company, or with your friends on some game, and you have some kind of game designer or guy who is in charge, for the game story and design and so on. And he says here, okay, this is the first level. It doesn't make much sense to me to have all of those zombies right on the start. From the start it will be too difficult for player to survive. I want you to code the game so that only one zombie is on the screen at the time. That means if there is one zombie on the screen, do not spawn the other and the other and the other and so on. So we are making some kind of limit on zombies, and again try to think about it in more complex games and so on. So like for example, I cannot kill zombies with these players yet. I don't have a gun, weapon or anything which I can hurt the zombie with, so I cannot kill the zombie. But imagine I have it and I kill this guy, and I want then the new zombie to spawn, only then. So if there is one zombie on the screen, okay, that's all cool, do not spawn any other. But if this zombie is killed or disappeared or whatever, then spawn another one, so there will be only one zombie on the screen, and that way the game will be a little bit easier for player, because it's the first level. Yeah, so how would you do it, and could you do it with the knowledge so far? Think about it for you can pause the video or try to do it on your own. But I think we can do that with this new block which we have learned today, if instance exists. And also I like to show different examples of using the same blocks in different ways, just to give you ideas, to relax you, to make you experiment, to make you free in terms of making your own games the way you want, experimenting with code the way you want. So sometimes you will get really cool results, and you don't have to stay binded or limited to what some other people or whoever show you. Just try it on your own. So the first example which we had here was that this block, if instance exists, can be used to check if some instance exists, and then run the code only if that is true. So if instance player exists, then start chasing with zombie, so we can avoid errors. But you can use this block, if instance exists, to make some kind of game code, game feature, game mechanics. So I will do that now. This will not be connected to us trying to stop the GameMaker giving us error, but opposite, we are trying to define the game design, the game feature. So let's do it here. Okay, I will set this alarm countdown in my create event, but I think that's all cool. Set it right away. My spawner is here, so it will start when the game starts. This create will start. That's all cool, but I don't want my spawner to create instance right away when this alarm countdown is 0. So I want to make some kind of switch, some kind of check mark to first test, is there only one enemy on the screen? If it isn't, then spawn it. So for example, I think I can do it, not sure, but let me try. I will use this if instance exists, and now I'll again try to first define what you want in simple English or whatever language you use, and then translate that into code. I want to say this: if zombie player is not existing on the screen, so if this guy is not existing like this, then start spawning zombies from this spawner. But if this guy is here on the screen and he's maybe chasing, he's maybe not chasing, I don't care, do not spawn any other. I want only one on the screen. So let's try to define that with code. So if instance obj, which one? Obj enemy, but take care here, if he doesn't exist, then create this instance and start looping right away. And again, you can see how it's easy to get messy here on so many ways. So this, when I put this block to the right, so you see some kind of blue line on the right, that means I'm entering that drag and drop block and so on. So now I think it will work. And again, try to read this again in plain English. If obj enemy zombie doesn't, because we have checked not, doesn't exist, then create another one. So let me try now my game to test it, and I will test it on two ways. First of all, there is a zombie, so I hope now spawn will not be working. So let me wait for a couple of seconds. So I have one zombie on the screen and it seems like it's working. There's only one on the screen. So if there is not zombie on the screen, spawn another one. But I have the zombie on the screen, so do not spawn another one. And we can check it one more time on different from different perspective. So this time I will try to I'm not sure how it's called here, disabling or making invisible my obj enemy. So see this guy here, when I uncheck it here, now it's not on the screen like we already did with our player before, but now we're doing that with zombies. So what is the scenario now? I have the player, but I don't have a zombie. So what will happen now? Let's read the code again. If instance exists, if it doesn't, sorry, exists, because we have checked this mark. So if instance does not exist obj enemy, and that's true, I don't have obj enemy, I don't have zombie, it doesn't exist, then create instance. So now my spawner should work. I should not have the zombie in my top view, but after 6 seconds or 3 I should get spawning, and I should, yeah, so it works. So you see how it's easy. And again, I think it will work only once. Yeah, you see, no more than one. So that's how you can limit your spawner with different blocks, and there are almost endless possibilities. I have used this if instance exists in two ways. I could code this spawner with other blocks here, and so on, so on. It's just about what you find easiest for you, what you understand most, and what makes sense to you. Then use those blocks. It's simple as that. The whole idea here is to learn a couple of different ways, and in this specific block it's important to use it when you get those errors from GameMaker, like this instance is not on the screen, I cannot see it, it's giving me bugs. Then use this if instance exists. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.